Welcome to this week's inspiring episode of Drive for Life. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Drive for Life. I'm your host, Brian Martindale, and this starts a new series of special episodes of Drive for Life. It starts the Drive to 7,000. In 2026, as many of you know, we are trying to motivate 7,000 individuals in America to become living kidney donors and save 7,000 lives. And we are bringing in many partners this year to do so. Other organizations who believe like us that giving the power of media, getting stories told, and giving resources and education to people will bring forward more donors this year and will finally eclipse that 7,000 barrier for the first time. So we're very excited to be in the Carmen Capero Studios with Rick Lofgren from the organization Children's Organ Transplant Association, or C.O.T.A, as they are known. Now, let me just tell you just a short bit about C.O.T.A and their mission. The Children's Organ Transplant Association helps children and young adults who need a life-saving transplant by providing fundraising assistance and family support. And all of their efforts and all of their resources are free. And Rick Lofgren is going to tell us more about that. Rick is their president. And from what I understand, Rick, you're celebrating 40 years this year of doing in the kidney community. So first of all, thank you so much for taking time today to be with us. And we're so honored to have you as a partner in the Drive to 7,000 for 2026.
Well, thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. And it's exciting to be part of this. One of the things that I've always thought as C.O.T.A as an organization that we need to be partner with other organizations that feel strongly about promoting organ donation. We do the fundraising side, but we don't focus as much on the getting the organ side, which is what you do. And I'm very happy to be part of the Kidney for Kids program as well.
Well, thank you so much. I've admired, as a living kidney donor myself, I've admired your work for years and what you're able to do for people. Because people, sometimes they get the impression that depending on the person, children or adults type of insurance, that all the costs are picked up. And obviously, we know that isn't true. And there can be some massive things that are burdens that are placed upon families and adults. And I want to ask you some of the details about that. So I've gathered some of your information because I want this interview to really feature all the wonderful things that C.O.T.A does. So let's dive in here. Can you please share how C.O.T.A, or the Children's Organs Transplant Association, was founded, first of all?
Sure. Our origin story is we had a little boy here in our hometown of Bloomington, Indiana, who needed a life-saving liver transplant. And that was back in 1985. His mom and dad both had insurance coverage through their employers, but they discovered that neither insurance coverage covered transplant. And so there were few transplant centers at that time, as you know, Brian, that did pediatric cases. They had to leave Bloomington, Indiana, and go up to Wisconsin to the transplant center at the University of Wisconsin, where this little boy was formally listed for transplant. But what they learned when they got to the hospital was that they had to pay for this because it wasn't covered by insurance. That family came home from that hospital visit and told friends and family, people in their church, this is what's going on. We can't afford this. And it was at that point that the community of Bloomington rallied together and raised more than $100,000 to get that little boy listed for his liver transplant.
Oh, my Lord. Wow. So that set the premise for what you're doing now.
It did. And I've talked to some of those original volunteers from 40 years ago, and they told me literally they went door to door asking for help. They went to the local county fair and set up a booth there so they could raise money. They did everything that you could think of fundraising wise and raised more than $100,000 in about 2 months' time to get that little boy listed. But it was at that stage, the volunteers that did that thought there has to be another child out there that needs help. And most people about kidney transplants, but livers were a little less common for kids then. But they founded the organization, and in 1986, we were formally set up as a 501c3, which is why our anniversary is this year. But we're really excited about the number of kids that we can help around the country. And again, making an impact is what we want to be a part of.
Yeah, and you certainly are making an impact. I know you've already been involved with one of our families, and just like I say, what you're able to do, and all these questions. We'll get more into that for everybody that's watching. Um, how long have you been the president now of COTA?
Well, transplant impacted my family's life. I had a cousin who had a bone marrow transplant from Kokomo, Indiana, about 50 years ago. But I
Okay,
started here 27 years ago. I was contacted by the board chairman at that time and said, "We have an opening. We'd love to talk to you." And because of my family's history, this was an immediate, this is something I need to do kind of moment for me.
right,
And since that
right.
time, I've moved my family here. We've had a wonderful experience and we've grown the organization from that first year. We helped 31 new families to our best year in the past couple of years have been almost 250 families that have been new that we've assisted. And on top of that, we
Wow.
have about 1,000 families every year that we help in some form, whether it's fundraising or they've fundraised already and we're paying expenses that those families have for a lifetime.
That is tremendous. I mean, that's just a huge impact. And I mean, yeah, just like us growing where we hope we can help. Not, we want any kid to be sick, but, dozens to hundreds of kids at a time because the need is out there. So your impact with that many people is just amazing to me. I'm learning a lot here already. Now I know that CODA helps children and young adults needing life-saving transplants. Can you explain what that means to our listeners? Are there age limitations? Do you help with all types of transplants? How about that?
Great questions. So, at a very high level, Brian, what we do is we'll work with parents of our patients, and we define kids up through age 21, regardless of their diagnosis. And for patients that have a single gene disease, and for your kidney patients, that would be polycystic kidney disease is the most common one. But we also help kids that
Right,
have cystic fibrosis or sickle cell disease. But there are more than 5,000 diagnoses that qualify. So it's not just kids. So as your viewers go on our website, they might see a young man that might have a beard who's in his 30s or
okay,
40s. It's usually because it's a PKD patient or it's a patient that's been working with us for 30 years. And when they were two and now are 30, obviously
right,
have
gotcha.
changed. But what we do is we go into that patient's hometown and we train friends and family members as volunteers to raise the money. We give them the tips and tools. We literally have more than 100 different fundraising activities that they can choose. And it really is a plug and play kind of situation, Brian. So our
Hmm.
hope is that we raise enough money for that family so that not only can they pay for those costs to get their child home from transplant, but we also want to make
Right.
sure that we're paying their bills for a lifetime. And for those families that are taking advantage of what you're promoting here with the Drive to 7,000, we also can pay for the donors' costs as well. And so we'll talk to the families about how we can help do that, give them all the tools that they need. But we really try to stiff our mom and dad and say, focus on your child. Let us work with a volunteer team to worry about the fundraising.
Yeah, you take all that burden because I mean, knowing, I get a personal relationship, with every family, being the founder, and that's just what I expected from the start. And we're getting to obviously more and more numerous families and adults, children and adults. But hearing some of the personal stories and some of the struggles they go through, and a lot of it, or quite a lot of it, much of it comes down to money, unfortunately.
It does.
We don't like to have ethics or, think about anything that everything has to come back to money in the end, but it's there, whether it's the cost of the surgeries, the aftercare, like you said, cost of the donor. Like for me, I was off for 6 weeks. I was, working in construction at the time. I donated to Jessica. And yeah, I was lucky to be in a situation where I had support, but that we lose sometimes donors. And that's a reason because of they want to. They came forward for somebody out of the good intention of their heart because of a story they heard or saw, and then they realized, well, there's no way for me to miss 6 weeks of work unless my employer will give me paid leave. And of course there are programs to get more employers involved in doing that, but it's there's not enough. And there's, not enough organizations like yours. I mean, you are the ones that are really pulling the weight here for transplant patients in all respects, in all kinds of transplants. And learning more too, that you're working with the donors as well to cover those costs. So it's a package deal. The family can comfortably tell their possible donor that you don't have to worry. Everything's taken care of. We can concentrate on our child or our adult's health, your health, recovering, and all those burdens have been taken away.
I think one of the challenges that every family faces that's going through a transplant journey is they don't know what they don't know. And all of
Yeah,
those things that you just described, Brian, are things that our families are facing every day. And oftentimes there's a second or third child in the family that mom and dad have to split their focus on the child that needs the healthcare and
yeah,
the kids. And so our hope is to take a little bit of burden off their shoulder, allow them to focus, make sure that a clinic visit or getting prescriptions aren't a detriment to getting that transplant and having a successful outcome.
yeah. You mentioned that. We just went through that with, a family or child, 15-year-old teenager, but, many siblings. And, that was part of the thing. He was having guilt, as a teenager, that he was taking away the focus, and attention and love from his siblings. So he felt burdened. And then it does sometimes, it is the siblings that feel like, okay, my brother's sick and he gets all the attention. Now I understand he's sick, but there's nothing left for me.
No,
So, you're freeing up that time and that every minute is so important to a transplant family, you know, and
it
needed.
is. And I think sometimes, Brian, for everyone, not just transplant families,
Yeah.
finances can be a challenge. In the past couple of years, I
Yeah.
think we've seen that nationwide. But I think it's one of those cases when your costs go up to the highest level when your child needs a transplant, while your income probably has decreased because you've had to take extra time off. It's just a
Yeah.
win situation for our families, and anyone that can come alongside them to help make that easier is going to make everything in that family work a little bit better and hopefully much, much better.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk more about that right after this commercial break. We'll be right back with more of Drive for Life, the Drive to 7,000 with Rick Lofgren and C.O.T.A.
You'll do better at Garber. When you choose Garber Chevrolet in Midland, you become a partner in helping local organizations better the lives of thousands, generously giving back to our community since 1907. We support numerous local efforts to continuously better our Midland area communities. And together, we're able to make a difference. And your vehicle doesn't cost you a penny more with Garber's low price guarantee. Choose Garber Chevrolet in Midland. You'll get a better price and be a part of making better happen right here in Midland.
I donated my kidney to my best friend Jaslyn when I was 19. I had always been aware of Jaslyn's health problems because we were such close friends since we were kids. And I found out that her kidneys failed, and from then I just made the logical assumption that she would need a kidney.
Hi, I'm Rick Lofgren, president of C.O.T.A, the Children's Organ Transplant Association.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Drive for Life, the Drive to 7,000. Again, I'm your host, Brian Martindale. We're in the Carmaine Apparel Studios tonight with Rick Lofgren from the Children's Organ Transplant Association, or C.O.T.A. Again, Rick, it's a pleasure to have you. And let's get back into where we left off before the commercial break. About how many families currently is C.O.T.A helping? That's a good question to start.
Well, thanks, Brian. Every year we help more than 200 new families with fundraising assistance, but in every year for the past 5 years, we've helped around 1,000 families overall. So in addition to those new families that we're working with, we have several hundred families that we help that perhaps their fundraising happened 5, 10, even 20 years ago, and we continue to help those families. So in our tagline, we talk about being the trusted leader supporting families for a lifetime. That's what we mean by a lifetime.
Yeah.
And to kind of put that into context, over the years, we've helped more than 4,500 families across the country. One of them that always comes to mind is a young man by the name of Miles Nesbitt. I met Miles and his family in Palo Alto, California, and his dad was his kidney donor when Miles was 8. And Philip, much like we were talking earlier about your situation with Jessica, he worked a
Hmm.
full-time job. He was the primary wage earner for the family. So during that period where he couldn't work because he donated, we helped
Hmm.
with some of the family's household expenses as well as all of their medical bills. Today,
Okay.
more than 21 years later, Miles is married, he's a dad, he's working full time and incredibly healthy. But he's a great example of, again, that lifetime of support that we talked about. And we want to make sure that the
Yeah.
families that are working with us, they're not worried about what is going to happen when their child is no longer on their insurance plan and are on their own.
Right.
Miles is a great example of that situation.
Yeah, and then that's something you brought to mind. I was thinking about in the first segment is people see these large amounts of monies that needs to be raised, but they don't understand. Like you say, you're there not just for this. This isn't just for the transplant. This is for a lifetime. Making sure they have a lifetime of support. Donors have a lifetime of support. Yeah, it isn't just a one-time thing. Just like us, we stick with the family after the child's transplanted. If there's anything needed in the future, any resources that we have to grant services, health resources, anything we can do, we're there for. And that's what you're doing here. You're giving just a lifetime of backing. And I can't see anything better as a kidney donor myself, that a recipient and donor can have, in a package deal, connecting all the dots. So, you're just taking so much stress and so many things out of the process. So the donor, I know what I went through going through the, testing process, all the thoughts I had, about what the magnitude of what I'm doing, talking to family, all those things are, you're going through and are on your mind. And even the night before, I just wrote an op-ed about this. The night before, Jessica and I were brought down to U of M in a friend's donated limousine together. And it was the only second time we actually talked. We were introduced prior, a few weeks before, by a friend who had worked for CNN, and she wanted to do a documentary. And she asked both of us separately if she could be the ones that introduced us. So we had that little bit of time, but riding next to her, it's just me, her, and mom, riding to Ann Arbor. We go by her school. There's a parade at her school, wishing her well, but then I'm dropped into a hotel room by myself, and they go over to the Mott Children's Hospital part, which are connected by a bridge, and I'm all alone with my thoughts, all that evening and until 5 that morning when I was prepped and I didn't sleep. I wanted to make sure I went back and forth in my mental checklist of, with my son. I knew I was going to have a grandchild later that year, and all the things that could, happen in the future. Somebody needed that was close to me, and all the other considerations, financial too, came into it, obviously.
Mhm.
And obviously, I knew that I was doing the right thing, but having you, if I had you back then in your services, that would have alleviated a lot of the things I was going through as a donor. So I want to say that in this Drive to 7,000, because of when a donor goes through everything in the thought process, know when you're watching this that the services are there, the support is there for you to become a donor, and people are there like Rick and C.O.T.A to put everything into place. So I just
Well,
want to elaborate. Go ahead.
and I think those are great points, Brian. We have a family in North Carolina that we highlighted in one of our videos a couple of years ago. And the young man in this case was 14 years old at the time, and his mom tested to be his living donor, and it turned out she wasn't a match. And so through the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, she got part of a chain or a domino donation system where she donated in May of one year to someone else. And then 14 donors later, her son received his kidney transplant about 10 months later. But that's one of those
Right.
situations where there were two separate surgeries, but they were almost a year apart. And so you think
Yeah.
about mom's recovery from being a donor in that domino or chain situation to their
Yeah.
son's transplant 10 months later. It just
Hmm.
remarkable amount of time that passed, the emotional aspects of that you described, the financial aspects of it. That's where
Yeah.
having a partner like C.O.T.A can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, because I mean, the wait. Tom Petty said it best, I think, and the waiting is the hardest part. Seriously, and whether you're a Tom Petty fan or not. But I mean, yeah, waiting, and it gives you time to think, and sometimes too much time to think, and
Mhm.
you're thinking of things that you shouldn't be. You should be concentrating on. Okay, I've made this progress. I'm through these tests. I'm making sure I'm physically ready. Everything is ready around me for me to give the donation, take the time off in the donor's respect, and then the recipient's respect. I have the time to be prepared. I know everything's taken care of. If I'm the parent, mom and dad, I know we're going to be there for my child, our child, and we don't have to think about all these things that other parents are going through alone.
Yeah.
So.
And I think sometimes the emotional aspects of this are just as difficult as the financial because it's over and over again. And much like you described about being in the hotel by yourself, that
Yeah.
happens in families that they're separated before the surgeries, and having some partner there knowing that they're going to care for you financially, they're going to pray for you, they'll be there emotionally. It goes a long
Yeah.
way, making the whole picture much, much better.
Absolutely. I mean, the support system around somebody, my wife, I mean, I tell her we just have been dating. We started dating 6 weeks before I told her that I was going to test to be a donor to a little girl who I did not know. So I talk about somebody that stuck with me and, and supportive and everything. She was there when the limousine came back. I rode back separately from Jessica because she was in a hospital a few more days than I was, but Wendy was waiting there for me, and took care of me during my recovery. But not everybody has the support system. Not everybody has somebody to talk to, and you offer that. You tell families that, hey, we're there for you. You can call us. We will. We have the resources to guide you through this and give you the comfort and the education. Correct.
Yeah, we do. And one of the neat things that I've found in working in transplant for more than 27 years is that the families that have been through this previously are willing to help those families that have just started their transplant journey. We have a
Yes.
reference list of parents that say if someone has a question, whether it's just my child needs a transplant and wants to ask what happens next, to those that mom or dad donated and they want to know what was the recovery time. The most common
Mhm.
question I get is how painful was it, which I'm sure you get asked a lot too, Brian.
Yes, I do.
It's nice to have people to talk to that can answer those questions because they've been there, and 5, 10, 20 years later, they can give a
Yes.
perspective that someone might not have as they're just entering the process.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's how I feel as a donor. Doing this drive to 7,000. First of all, besides being a donor, I've been a mentor now for the University of Michigan Transplant Center, who you know well. And this will be the 10th year for me. And I'm one of the people that if you're becoming a donor, I'm one of the people you can talk to and guide you through. And you can only tell from personal experience, like you said. If you can't tell about being a donor, just like some other things, I can't tell about being a police officer or firefighter or a military hero or something like that unless you've done it. And you can't tell about donating a kidney or receiving a kidney and going through it unless you've done it. And for you to have those resources for people to talk to, it makes all the difference in the world.
It
So
does.
let's one more quick commercial break and we'll be back and we'll finish this wonderful interview with Rick Lofgren and C.O.T.A on Drive for Life.
When I first inquired about what a transplant would cost, it's just, you can't even put it in words. Anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000. Who's got the funds to pay for that? It's really overwhelming. At some point you say to yourself, well, how are we going to get through this? Who's going to help us?
It's not like they say, this is how much it's going to cost, can you do it? You just do it because you know that that's what's needed. And at the end, things take time to roll in. Evan had his surgery in June. I didn't see a single bill until almost October. And then all of a sudden, boom. I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars of bills.
It's been very nice because C.O.T.A's team, they sent a fundraising package and kind of gave a step-by-step way to do it. So even if you've never done any fundraising, C.O.T.A is there to help you every step of the way. It's just been fantastic for us. So we've had a home run derby, we've had a golf tournament, we've done bake sales at the schools, we've done wristband sales, we've done t-shirt sales. It's only limited by your imagination. C.O.T.A provides ideas and helps along the way, and pretty soon it becomes second nature. Now everybody wants to help out.
When you talk about having a family that has somebody who has a transplant, it instantly becomes lifetime. So to have somebody who supports you through the journey, it makes it feel not so alone. But when those bills start rolling in, it's nice to be able to pick up the phone and say, I need some help with this. Who do I need to talk to? And C.O.T.A has been great.
C.O.T.A's website allows you to log on and pay the bills effortlessly. Provide them the receipt, and they take care of the rest.
The C.O.T.A family, knowing that you cover us for a lifetime, that you'll always be there, that if we need to fundraise again, if we need to have another event, you're there. And you can't put a price on it. It's like family.
C.O.T.A's funding not only just helps with the medications, but it also pays for your travel, your lodging, your parking, any transplant-related expense. Now, if that costs for me to drive to UNC, it pays for the gas, the lodging, the parking, and the meals. Having C.O.T.A behind us allows us to just enjoy our everyday lifetime activities and supporting one another and worry about his health than to worry about how are we going to pay for everything. C.O.T.A does that for you.
Because of C.O.T.A, we as the McGuire family have been able to get through a transplant and come out on the other side with calm and reassurance and the ability to keep rolling with life and not be bogged down with the medical expenses and the worry of how it's going to get paid for. Evan, being 15, still is a minor, still lives with us, but I expect great things out of this young man. Being able to just go to college, start a job, start a family, and not have this heavy burden of medical expenses.
Long after me and Steph are gone, C.O.T.A's going to be there. C.O.T.A's going to be there for my son. I get emotional thinking about it.
If your family is on a transplant journey, call the trusted leader supporting families. Call C.O.T.A today or go to COTAGetstarted.org.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Drive for Life. Again, I'm your host, Brian Martindale, coming to you from the Carmine Apparel Studios. Tonight, again, we're with Rick Lofgren from C.O.T.A, the Children's Organ Transplant Association. Thank you again, Rick, for being with us. We've talked so much about C.O.T.A and the wonderful things you do for not only recipients, but donors. And this being your 40th anniversary, I know this is a very special year for C.O.T.A. So tell me about the 40th anniversary and what's happening in 2026.
We have a number of celebrations that we're going to be doing throughout the year. The first one is starting this month in January. We're highlighting one of our patients, Brian, who received a liver transplant 33 years ago. And in fact, the day of this recording is just the same week as his anniversary of his liver transplant. That young man is now accessing as an adult, and he's a dad himself, all the funds that were raised. And so co-payments and deductibles are something he doesn't have to worry about 33 years after the fact. And
that is just amazing to me.
Well, and that's, as we were talking earlier, what we talk about, the lifetime of support that C.O.T.A provides. We're going to be highlighting each month a patient from around the country at different hospitals, different types of transplants, different ages, but highlighting what's happened in their lives. I think about another young man from North Carolina that had both a kidney transplant and later a bone marrow transplant. And Calvin's 7 years post-transplant and doing very, very well. But there's a case where having C.O.T.A along for the ride made it easier for his mom not to have to work during that period of time. And Kelvin had multiple month-long inpatient stays. So months for the kidney, multiple months from the bone marrow transplant. And then in between, while he was waiting, he was hospitalized a number of times. So we made that transition from a healthy child to an unhealthy child, back to a healthy child again, much easier for that family. So throughout this year, 40th anniversary, we're going to be talking about those lives that have been impacted and the difference that C.O.T.A has made and the impact of the volunteer teams that help raise the money to help those kids across the country. We also have some new programs, Brian, that we'll be doing in addition to the Drive to 7,000. We want to get more donors for our patients, and I mean organ donors in this case, not financial donors. But
Right.
we have some new programs that we're bringing on board, some support group activities. We're partnering with another of other organizations that are doing things for specific organ types, different parts of the country. Much as you said on the outside of the interviews, I think there are so many things that each of us do, but we can't do everything.
Hmm.
And so having partners
Right.
that can help complement all those things so that families that need our assistance, not only can we do the things that we need to do to help them, but we can show them here are some other resources and other organizations that can help. And Kidney for Kids is just one of those.
Oh, well, thank you. And that's the same way we feel about you and I, C.O.T.A, and then the other partners too. And, we have to put it out there because we know, unfortunately, in every aspect of life, whether it's medical or whatever, you can't get every organization to work together. Sometimes it comes down to agendas. Sometimes it comes down to money, and we hate to think about that. But we're asking, organizations like yours, and you've been so wonderful, in coming forward, as well as the other organizations we're working with that you'll see on the Kidneys for Kids website, on our banner. You can find all our partners there, C.O.T.A. You're going to find a new page for C.O.T.A that we're giving you so they can read about everything and then be linked directly to your page after they read about your services there. And then again, this interview will be on demand, and then you'll have it in your YouTube. So again, people that are watching this later on after the interview, please, if you're in need of a transplant, if you know somebody in need of a transplant, if you're becoming a living donor, contact C.O.T.A. Get with Rick's team because there are so many valuable resources available and so much support there for a lifetime. Because like what he just brought up, this is many, many years later, and the money was there to pay for things that wouldn't otherwise be there. You think about needing this money right now, 30 years later, over 30 years later. It's just incredible. So, I mean, I'm sure you've got many more stories like that too, that, refer to that you're giving that lifetime of help. Um, you've already covered, you actually travel to transplant centers around the country. Who in the transplant center setting introduces families to C.O.T.A? Can you explain that process before you get too far?
Absolutely. And Brian is a classic example. You mentioned Mott Children's Hospital a moment ago.
Yes.
We work with hospitals like Mott, and one of our team members will go into the hospital, work with the transplant coordinators, the social workers, financial coordinators, and we'll talk to them about what success we've had with children that they've had as patients that have also worked with us, and we'll show them how we're helping that family. I point to one child in southern Michigan that had a great outcome. I had a kidney transplant at Mott. This more than 10 years ago. That family's still accessing the funds, and that young man is now an adult and on his own. But that's what we always hope to do. And the link that you talked about a moment ago, that will take
Yes.
your viewers to our website at COTA.org, but it will allow them
Yep.
to see what other families that we're helping, and they can search by state, by type of transplant. There are a lot of different ways where they can plug in and help families, or potentially volunteer to help one of those families as someone that is local that could help raise money, help that family in other ways. But we want to make sure that our resources are available, much like you do with Kidneys for Kids.
Yeah.
It takes a village, as the old saying goes.
Absolutely, it does. It takes all of us, working together. I was touching on that just a moment ago. And, as more organizations, if you're watching this and you're connected with a transplant hospital, another kidney organization that isn't already a partner in the Drive to 7,000, you can be another valuable piece of this puzzle. Because, like I say, we only have to increase organ donation this year, kidney donation, by 8% to break 7,000. For some reason, we never get there. We fall short. We average the 6,000 to 6,500. We fell off before COVID. We built back up, but we're almost, at a standstill. And then last year too, we know deceased organ donation, because of bad press, because of false stories, fell behind, and that affected organ donation in total. And we're still working at overcoming those things because we believe in the power of organ donation as living donors as well as deceased donors too. And we want to be there to promote both. But right now, the Drive to 7,000 is about living donation, increasing living kidney donation through education, through resources like C.O.T.A, and partnerships that alleviate any stress of becoming a donor and alleviate the stress of you as a recipient. If you're watching this, definitely check out C.O.T.A. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to say as we close out the show for tonight?
Well, one of the things, Brian, I just want to leave your viewers on. I think one of the things that each of us want to see in our own lives is making an impact on someone else. And I think that is part of your motivation to be Jessica's donor.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
there are lots of other people that would love to do that, and you can make an impact in many ways, whether that's donating a kidney, being a
Yes.
volunteer, coming alongside a family and helping them financially. But there are so many opportunities for your viewers to make an impact. And so I just encourage people, don't just think about it. Make sure that you can do something, and we all can do something. Please act.
Yes, we can.
Impact.
Yes, we can. If you can't donate in one way, financially, donate as a living donor and vice versa, because both are needed tremendously to increase organ donation in total for whatever type of organ it is. We need support, and we need education, and we need people to know the truth out there of everything that goes into this. And tonight it's about living kidney donation and the support you receive from C.O.T.A. Please visit their website, COTA.org, and please give them financial support. Please give them, if you have anybody in need of transplant, donor, if you're becoming a donor, people, somebody that needs to be a recipient, I should say, of an organ, please contact C.O.T.A. And Rick, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you, Brian, and good luck to Drive to 7,000.
Thank you so much. You'll be riding with us around the country. So again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on Drive for Life. I'm your host, Brian Martindale. You were with myself and Rick Lofgren tonight from C.O.T.A. We hope to see you again next week. Have a great evening.